Tucker, Christianity is growing in Israel.
Okay, but
and there is a big lie that goes out there. But no, let me finish this because I keep hearing that Christians are really not treated well in Israel. That's a lie.
Okay, we're mixing so many different categories here. I'm just saying I get things wrong all the time. You've just gotten something wrong, and I think it's important to acknowledge it. There are many more Christians in Qatar than there are in Israel. Fact.
How many?
Now you caught me.
I love this because this is what Tucker did to Ted Cruz. Where is the promise found in Genesis of the land to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Caught him. Hey everybody, welcome back to another React video where I am going to react and I'm going to stay calm. I'm not going to get angry. My face isn't going to turn red when I start hearing from Tucker Carlson. Listen, when I first heard that Tucker Carlson was going to interview Governor and Ambassador Mike Huckabee, I thought, praise God, because someone is finally going to put Tucker in his place, answer the lies with logic and truth and reason. And you know what? That's exactly what happened. I'm so happy with this interview because it exposes Tucker for the liar and the anti-Semite that he is. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to play a few clips that I found extremely offensive. The way that Tucker went at Ambassador Huckabee, I thought was just nasty. He was trying to trick him, trying to portray Ambassador Huckabee and Israel as, you know, just this wicked, terrible entity and person, and how Huckabee's not representing the United States properly and all of that. And that's what we're going to react to today and talk about this. Let me also say, hey, listen, I want you to comment. I want you to tell me what you think about the interview and about Israel and all of that. Please comment, and we want to know what you think. We also, for those of you that haven't yet subscribed to our InGrace Israel channel, please do that. That would help us out. Okay, let's get into it. The first clip is going to deal with who are the Jews? That's the big question, right? What are the borders? What are we talking about when we talk about Israel and we talk about the Jews?
You've appealed to Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's Abram. It's pre-Abraham. It's Abram.
Thank you, Tucker. We didn't know
from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land. And you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant. So that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be, I mean,
I'm not sure it would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
It would be a lot of places that are now countries.
But this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started on this.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people.
Okay, so let me stop there and just say this. And I think Ambassador Huckabee was trying to answer this properly. Genesis 15 does promise a huge parcel of land to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants forever. And it is from the great river, the Nile River in Egypt, all the way up to the other great river, the Euphrates, up in the Levant, which is the kind of the Fertile Crescent that's running through Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Does that mean that's what Israel wants today? No, I actually think when we talk about the Promised Land, we're talking about the area just from the Jordan River to the west, all the way to the Mediterranean, from Mount Hermon in the north, all the way down to Eilat, the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aqaba in the south. That is the Promised Land. When Moses was looking in, he was in this larger area, but that wasn't the area that he was talking about, the Promised Land. Now, does that mean that in the future, one day, God isn't going to give them all of that? No, he will. They will have all of that. But the actual portion that they were inheriting from God was the area that I just described, a smaller area, what we would call modern day Israel today. Now, he's trying to trip up the ambassador because the ambassador, and this has made headlines, said it would be fine if these nations attack Israel and Israel wins, to take that land. And that is exactly what happens in modern warfare. If you're attacked and you win, you can take the territory of the one that attacked you. No one's calling for that. No one is saying this is going to happen today. But when God makes a promise, as he did in Genesis 15, God keeps his word. Those are the borders of modern Israel, the borders of the promised land, but the eventual borders that God will give them down the road in the future. Again, that's not what Christian Zionists are calling for, although I believe it. I believe that is the land that they will have. But the next question, the next area of concern that I have about this interview was Tucker's implications that the Jews in Israel today aren't really the Jews from the Bible. Because if God promised the land to the Jews in the Bible, then we would have to show some sort of provenance that the people that returned to Israel from all over the world, not just from Europe. And Tucker was talking about Netanyahu being from Poland and his family from Poland, and they weren't even really religious and all of this. So the question is, who are the Jews? And this is a new lie. This lie actually started around the time that Israel returned to the land and became a nation. It's only about 50 years old, where people have been saying, well, they say they're Jews, but they're really not. Because once the Jews returned to the land, those like Augustine and Luther and others that said, well, they'll never return to the land because they've broken God's promises and the church has replaced Israel. But when they did return to the land, all of a sudden, like, okay, now what are we going to do? Well, the only thing that they can do now, the only thing they have left is, well, those that went back to Israel really aren't Jews. So how do we know? And Tucker proposed a DNA test. Well, Judaism isn't just ethnicity. They're a religion, they're a nation, they're a people group that has traceable records. You can trace the Jewish people from teacher to student, all the way back from today, all the way back to Moses. This is traceable, that they keep the Jewish customs. Now, they might not all keep exactly the same things, but all the Jewish people I know, even if they're not, we would call them secular, they still observe Passover. They still are observant in some ways. They still have the connection culturally to the Jewish people. That's what we're talking about. Hitler never said when he was killing the Jews of Eastern Europe or of Europe improper, he never said, well, you're not really Jews. No, he killed them all because they were Jews. There was no question back then, were they really Jews or were they really not Jews? And by the way, Israel isn't just people from Europe. The Jews in Israel, more Jews from Israel are there from other parts of the world than the Ashkenazi Jews, the Jews from Europe. There are Jews from Spain, Jews from Yemen, Jews from Ethiopia, Jews from India. If you go to Israel, you're going to see all shades of skin tone, and the percentage is higher of Jews in Israel today than from other parts of the world than from Europe. So that is a myth. It's a lie. Tucker is pushing that, and that's anti-Semitic. It's another lie. Where are these lies coming from? The talking about the borders, talking about the who are the people of Israel. These are lies from the devil. He is the father of lies. Tucker is pushing the agenda of Satan, and I'm just going to say it flat out. And I get so upset at people like this because they are making gains on the right of conservatism. In the United States, we have a great movement that believes in America and believes in religious freedom and believes in family. But a far extreme right side of that is starting to come out against Israel, which is mind-boggling to me. But it's happening, and that's why we have to push back against this. Now, another clip I want to talk about is when Tucker was talking about how Christians are actually being persecuted in Israel. I'll tell you this, I've been to Israel many times. I've never once felt any type of persecution because I was a Christian. We can be openly Christian. You can wear a cross. The churches can have steeples and crosses and bells ringing in Israel. You cannot do that in many other places in the Middle East. You cannot do that in the Palestinian-controlled areas anymore. Israel provides religious freedom Qatar does not. You cannot have any outward displays of Christianity in Qatar unless you're in the Christian ghetto, the workers area, which they're not even Qataris. So this whole next segment, Tucker has it 100% wrong, and Mike Huckabee has it exactly right.
Tucker, Christianity is growing in Israel.
Okay, but
And there is a big lie that goes out there. But no, let me finish this because I keep hearing that Christians are really not treated well in Israel. That's a lie.
Well, there are lots
It
of
is a
different,
lie.
There are lots of different.
There were 34,000 Christians in Israel in 1948. There are 184,000 Christians here today.
And by Israel, what are you counting?
You talking about the land?
What territory are you counting?
I'm
counting
talking about
Israel proper? Or are you counting
talking about Israel
the West
proper.
Bank as well and Gaza? I mean, what do you when you say Israel? Those numbers apply to what landmass?
It would be in Israel proper.
Okay.
There are 184,000. Now,
Christians are shrinking in some of the Palestinian-controlled areas, like Bethlehem, but it's not because of Israel. The Palestinians control those areas. The Palestinian Authority controls those areas. So the persecution is not from Israel. The shrinkage of Christianity in those areas are because of the corrupt leadership of the Palestinian Authority.
I'll tell you where Christians are not doing very well. They're not doing very well in the Muslim-controlled countries. There's almost no Christians in Qatar, for example, except those who live in the Christian ghetto, who are the service workers.
I'm
You
sorry.
can't
Look,
pray.
I don't want to argue with you. There are many more Christians in Qatar than there are in Israel.
That's not true.
It actually is true. And I refer you to Wikipedia, Mr. Ambassador.
Wikipedia,
I refer you to the government of Qatar, the government of Israel.
Huckabee wanted to criticize Wikipedia because, there are some good things on Wikipedia, but there's also some things that aren't true. So you can't just throw Wikipedia up as authoritative, I don't think.
These are knowable facts. I'm
in Jordan,
by the way,
numbers are down. In Syria, the numbers are down. In
I'm
Lebanon,
just
the
saying,
numbers are down.
there
I'm just
are
telling you that
about twice as many Christians.
but they live in
hold
the
on.
enclave. They are not native Qataris.
They're not citizens.
We're mixing so many different categories
Yeah.
here. I'm just saying I get things wrong all the time. You've just gotten something wrong, and I think it's important to acknowledge it. There are many more Christians in Qatar than there are in Israel. Fact.
How many?
Now you caught me.
I love this because this is what Tucker did to Ted Cruz. Where is the promise found in Genesis of the land to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Caught him. And here, Ambassador Huckabee caught Tucker on this one. This was good.
Oh, no, I can look at my phone, but I was just there, and there are many more.
Kind of bumbling
whatever.
here. Christianity is protected in Israel. And I know plenty of Christians in Israel, and they're able to worship freely. I've done it. I've been there. But the same is not true of a lot of the other Muslim countries. So if you're going to criticize these other countries. Don't criticize Israel on this. Another thing that Tucker implied was that he was hauled off into security and his staff was detained and interrogated. Now, I've been to Israel. I'm almost always frustrated with Israeli security, but I'm also glad about it. Why? Because people are trying to blow up people in Israel. Israeli security has kept that from happening on any Israeli airlines. So while I'm aggravated with the security and what they'll do isn't, they do check things, they do the, scanning and going through stuff, but they also have people that come and ask you questions. Tucker will call it interrogation. This is normal. If you've never traveled to Israel, this is exactly what happens. They ask you questions and they don't really care what you're answering. What they care about is the way you answer. Are you getting nervous? Are you sweating? Because they want to really be careful to protect the state of Israel and the people that live there. By the way, the people that live in Israel are Jews and Arabs and Christians, Muslims, Druze, Bedouins. Israel protects everybody. So if you're going to complain about Israel's security, go ahead. You can do that. I'm frustrated by them sometimes. I've done a lot to help Israel, bless Israel, and I've been pulled aside and questioned, but it's okay. I've been in private rooms before. Just chill out. That's how Israel has to be. They're not some sort of state that, controls you. They're trying to protect its citizens, and I have no problem with that. I also wanted to play another huge trope against the Jews and against Israel, and that is that they are part of this vast conspiracy, that they were guilty of 9/11, and the Jews get blamed for everything. And Tucker started talking about Israel protecting criminals, in particular pedophiles. So I want to talk about that for a second and clear up some really damaging things that Tucker said that are not true.
Does it seem strange to you that people accused of child molestation in the United States are allowed to have refuge within the borders of our closest ally? How that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I would say that
if you've molested an American child, shouldn't you be required to stand justice?
It's an allegation. Let's be clear. One of the things about our system of jurisprudence, you're innocent until you're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So if the charges are there, should he be extradited? I would say so.
The charges are there.
Yeah. Okay. So they should be. But that's a Justice Department decision, and they're the ones who should be pursuing it. To my knowledge, they haven't. They certainly haven't engaged the U.S. Embassy over it.
Why would the Israeli government harbor fugitives from justice in the United States?
Okay, I'm going to stop there and just say this. Tucker is referring to an Israeli official, not some diplomat, but somebody that worked for the Israeli government, who was in Las Vegas and was accused and charged with a crime. And the crime was soliciting with electronics a minor, a 15-year-old. 100% wrong. The guy needs to go to jail. It was a state issue or a county issue. It's not a federal issue. They gave him bail and they allowed him to go back to Israel. Israel's not harboring this man. This man is still under charges. This man still has to potentially go back and face justice. And they allowed him to appear by a Zoom call to some of the charges. And the next hearing isn't until April. So the fact that he's returned to Israel is apparently okay with Nevada. And it's not a U.S. Justice Department issue. It's not a case for the Justice Department. So, but Tucker bringing this up without all the facts is wrong. And to imply that Israel harbors pedophiles is wrong. It's not true. Israel is moral. Israel would not allow this. Then Tucker brings up something that is absolutely asinine. He makes an allegation against the president of Israel. I have been able to be with the president of Israel a couple times in his home, and he is one of the most gracious, humble, and I believe moral people I've ever met. And for Tucker to bring this up, and he's since had to retract this, he has since had to pull this. But to me, I wouldn't listen to anything else Tucker says ever again if he's going to bring this up, which was a known AI fraudulent email that he's referencing. Let's watch this now.
Why are millions of Epstein files still classified? Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I haven't kept up with that. I've never met the man. I don't know him.
You haven't kept up with the Epstein disclosure?
I mean, only from a distance. I'm 6,000 miles away from D.C. these days, and I'm pretty sure that there's so much going on.
The current president of Israel, current president, who I know you know, President Herzog,
know him very well,
apparently was at Pedo Island. That's what it says in the disclosures.
Okay, so he says this. Pedo Island is the reference to Epstein's private island in the Caribbean, where horrible things were going on. Anyone that was part of that needs to go to jail, 100%. To imply that Herzog was there is unbelievable. And the evidence that Tucker's using was someone that sent an email that wasn't true, a picture of Herzog with Epstein and some women. That was a known fake. The person that posted it said it was wrong, that she hadn't done due diligence, that it was a fake. And he still takes that and not only puts it out there, blindsiding Ambassador Huckabee, but implying that Ambassador Huckabee must be also in on protecting these pedophiles if he doesn't even know about these allegations and he hasn't researched. When Tucker himself is using erroneous information that already was exposed, that's why I say anything else that Tucker says is not germane to any conversation. I believe he is, in a way of speaking, perjured himself from the conversation. He is anti-Israel, For whatever reason, people say it's because of Qatari money. I don't know. I'm not saying that because I don't know, but I know one thing for sure. He was coming at hard at Ambassador Huckabee. He was there with an agenda. He had been friends with Ambassador Huckabee for a long time. I have known Ambassador Huckabee from days back when he was a Southern Baptist pastor, where he and my dad knew each other. I knew him in prison ministry in Angola, Louisiana. I've been with him at other events and talked to him privately at places. I'm not saying we're close, but I know him. And the fact that Tucker also knew him very well and was coming at him, trying to trip him up, trying to make him say things, and using these things that have been proven to be lies, that tells me all I need to know about Tucker Carlson. It's sad to see where he's at today, but this is where he's at. And that's why it pains me to know that millions of people are listening to Tucker on X. Let me just go to one more thing that Tucker kept talking about, and that is that Israel was intentionally killing children and women. And I'll just tell you this. Israel is a moral country. Israel has done more to stop the killing of innocent people in Gaza and other places than anyone else. When Ambassador Huckabee mentioned to Tucker that there was a response by Israel that we don't even do as a military, instead of Tucker listening to that evidence, he went at Huckabee and saying that Huckabee was putting down the U.S. military. That's where I think Tucker was very disingenuous. He didn't really care about what Ambassador Huckabee had to say. Ambassador Huckabee stayed calm. I can't stay calm. I would have blown up. I would have gone right at him. But praise God for a man like Ambassador Huckabee, because he was reasoned, he was calm, he was able to dismantle almost everything that Tucker was saying. And how do we know that Israel isn't out to kill children? Because the ambassador from Israel to the United States, Michael Leiter, his son was killed in Gaza. Why? If Israel wanted to, they could have eliminated Hamas with aerial bombardment, but they didn't do that. They attacked certain places, but they would pre-warn them that they're attacking them with bombs. They let people escape. Hamas actually put people in harm's way, but Israel sent in its ground troops to minimize civilian casualties. Many Israelis have lost children in that. It is a moral country with a set of moral codes, and their army is a citizen army. So it's impossible for Israel to have committed these so-called crimes like genocide when they did everything in their power, even sacrificing their own children, to keep that from happening. Certainly, innocent people died, but far fewer than would have died if they would have used conventional means like we did with Tokyo, like we did with Berlin, like we did with Nagasaki and Hiroshima. If there's ever a call for that, it would be against us, but nobody's saying it against us. They're saying it against little Israel, who did everything they could to stop that. So I'm glad that this interview happened. I don't know why Tucker didn't stay in Israel for a while. He had some long excuse. And when the interview starts with a really long diatribe at the beginning, I'm usually very suspicious that interview didn't go very well for Tucker. And that's what I heard at the very beginning, was this long of all these things. They detained my guys, and they were, a police state and all this nonsense. He has to set all of this up because the interview did not go very well for him, which proves it because he had to pull out the Herzog section and apologize for that. So I hope that we've learned something today about Israel, and I hope that this InGrace React video has been a blessing to you and your family. Don't forget, we have a lot of other InGrace videos. This one right here, I think you'll really enjoy. I was able to walk the entire pilgrimage road from the Pool of Siloam up to the Temple Mount in Israel, walk that with me and my guide. We had a wonderful time doing that, and a lot of people are blessed by that video. We have a lot of other videos that I want you to watch. If you want to help us make more content that will be a blessing to Israel, please go to ingrace.tv, and there you can make a contribution. You can find other books and resources. And we are writing a book right now, The Spiritual War Against Israel, and we'd love for you to pre-order your copy of that. Also, I hope that you have investigated the claims of Christianity. The claims of Christianity are very simple. There's a God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We sinned against this God. Bad things have happened ever since. But God loves us so much that he entered into humanity by sending his son to die on a cross for our sins. He rose again the third day, and he invites anyone to believe in him, to trust in him, and be saved from their sins, saved from eternal hell to eternal heaven. And that's the good news of Christianity. And that's what's changed my life. I hope that you are blessed, and I hope that God richly blesses you and your family. Until next time.